Hello, everyone. My name is Katya Armistead. I am an Assistant Vice Chancellor and Dean for Student Life. And I'm here to welcome you to STEP, welcome you to UCSB. I would like to share with you a little bit more about myself and share some tips about being successful at UCSB. A little bit more about me. I am a gaucho. I graduated from UC Santa Barbara back in, I always like to blur the year, 19 blah, 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 blah. But I will be honest, 1988. My degree is in sociology. I have my bachelor's degree. I also have my doctorate degree from UC Santa Barbara. I have a degree in educational leadership. I have worked at UCSB for a really long time. Actually, in October, it'll be 30 years. Wow, time flies. I am originally from Pasadena, California. That's where I was born and raised. I didn't just stay at UCSB. I actually, the year after I graduated, I stayed for a minute. I worked for the Department of Arts and Lectures, which was a wonderful experience. I worked there as an undergraduate, as a work study student. One of the things I got to do was usher and see a lot of different theater productions. I really loved the dance productions. I even saw some movies that I would have never gone to see if I had my choice, and they ended up being wonderful and beautiful. And then when I graduated, I worked, I did some reception work for them, and I worked for the marketing director, which I also started doing as an undergraduate. And that was a really good experience. One of the things that happened was I met a Black filmmaker through a series that Arts and Lectures was doing, and he offered me a job to work on his film. So I moved back home to Pasadena, and I would go into Hollywood and Burbank and work on this film. It was a lot of work. I decided that's not what I wanted to pursue, but I'm so glad that I had that experience. After I completed that job, or I ended up leaving it, I moved to New York City. I'd always wanted to move to New York. One of the things that I did where I really pushed myself, and I mean that, pushed myself, because I was a first generation low income student. I was an EOP student. I attended STEP back in the day. And one of the things I did my sophomore year, after spending my first summer at home, I decided I was never going to stay at home for the summer again. I wanted to do something else. And I went into our career center, and I had to physically walk in. You all can go in virtually, even when we're back on campus before COVID. But I had to walk in because we didn't have internet back in the 80s, and do some research on summer jobs. And I decided I wanted to be a camp counselor. And not realizing it, I applied to the American Camping Association in the New England area. And that was just, I hand wrote the application, I mailed it off, and they put it on file. And this camp called Camp Walt Whitman in New Hampshire saw my application, phoned me up, and said, hey, we want to offer you a job for the summer. Really? I'm going to fly to New York City and get on a bus to New Hampshire to work in this strange place for 2 months that I have no idea what to expect? Well, I did, and it was a wonderful experience. So I would fly into New York, and I did this for 5 summers, and then take a bus to New Hampshire. And I said, someday I'm going to live in New York. So fast forward, after the film experience, I decided, okay, this is that someday. I actually went back to camp. That was the second to last year I did the summer camp. And I moved into New York with a girlfriend who, she was a professional dancer. So I lived in this apartment with a bunch of dancers in Astoria, Queens. And at first I got a job working as a waitress at the bottom of the Empire State Building. That was an experience. And then I got a job as an administrative assistant in an advertising agency. And so it was just like the movies to me. I'd wear my tennis shoes on the subway and get to this big, beautiful building on 6th Avenue. And I had to pass a receptionist and be let in. And oh, it was a great experience. I hated the work. Advertising was definitely not for me. Way too cutthroat. I'm a people pleaser. It was not for me. But I gained valuable skills, and I got to enjoy the New York lifestyle. It was fabulous. I learned a lot about working in an office, the dynamics of working with coworkers. So all the really good experience that really set me up for future work. I ended up moving back to Santa Barbara. Never thought I'd live here. I remember when my mom visited me my senior year, and I lived in an apartment on Del Playa, that's the beach street, very close to campus. And she came over and she's like, "Oh my goodness, Katya." And I'm like, "Yeah, mom, sociology major. I'll probably never be able to afford beachfront property ever again," which is true. But I do still live in beautiful Santa Barbara, as you can tell. Anyway, never thought I'd settle down here, but I did have this on again, off again boyfriend when I left UCSB, and he decided to come visit and he proposed. And so I said yes. And I moved back to Santa Barbara because he had a good job. He was a gaucho or is a gaucho, and the rest is history. So one of the things I knew when I moved back to Santa Barbara is I wanted to work at the university. And after some time and applying, I ended up landing a job in admissions. And I started as an administrative assistant in the Office of Admissions. I worked my way up, became an assistant director, moved over to student life, became an assistant dean. I started my doctorate program, gained more experience, became an associate dean, eventually the dean of student life, and now an assistant vice chancellor and dean of students. So as a first generation, very low income, single parent background, I worked my way up, and I gained a lot of experience and a lot of education. And that really lands me to where I am now. And I share that story with you all because whatever your dreams are, whatever your aspirations are, you can do it. You just have to work hard, create the reality, take advantage of opportunities. And actually, that's the next thing I want to talk about: how important it is to take advantage of opportunities. Coming to college, even if it's virtually for a while, because this is dang COVID stuff, we will get back to campus. It will happen. That doesn't mean you should just give up and not do anything right now and just take your classes. No, you still can hustle. You still need to take advantage of opportunities. It's a chance to reinvent yourself. You get to be whoever you want to be. Whatever they thought of you in high school, good and bad, all of it. Now decide what kind of student, what kind of person that you want to be while you're in school. This is where I would say you really solidify who you are, really think about your values, and move forward with those. Find your passion. And even if you're like, I'm not quite sure yet, that's okay. What interests you? What sounds appealing? Take advantage of those times when you see something advertised. Go to Shoreline and like, ooh, that club sort of sounds interesting, but I don't want to go by myself. Why not? What do you have to lose? Just try it. What if I had said, ooh, New Hampshire, I've never been there. I don't know what that's like. I don't want to do it because I'm too scared. You already have taken the leap to come to UCSB. Keep taking those leaps. Try new things. Grow yourself. It has really worked for me. When I started working at Arts and Lectures as an undergrad, it was like, what do I do? Oh man, usher. Okay, one day I had an assignment to usher a lecture. Oh gosh, lectures, so boring. I already go to lectures every day for class. I don't want to do this. I'm gonna bring my schoolwork, sit in the back, in the lobby, and once I do my work, I'm just gonna sit back there and do my homework. When I got to Campbell Hall, where this lecture was, I noticed this huge long line of people wanting to get in to see this lecture. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is some kind of physics person. Why would anybody want to go see this? So I got in, helped move everybody in. I'm not even sure if everybody got in because it was so crowded. And I thought, I stood by the door in the back. I might as well see what the beginning looks like because people are trying to see this guy. Somebody named Richard Hawkins. And oh my gosh, I was memorized by his lecture, and to learn that he discovered black holes, and he was just enthralling and ended up being a very famous person. And I used to run into him on campus. I didn't go talk to him, but I'd see him on campus a lot back in the day. So pretty cool. It exposed me to a lot of things. And I'm so glad that I took advantage of different opportunities to really expand myself, expand my mind, expand my opportunities. So how do you explore your options? Research says that it's really a good idea to get involved somehow. Find those passions, find those interesting things, get involved in a club, organization, a cause, And you can find all of that on Shoreline. We, the campus, advertise all the different opportunities on Shoreline. Right now, even through the summer, there's 200 to 300 different events every day. And it's only going to increase over the school year. So don't just sit back, finish a class, do some work. Go explore. Go see what the MCC, the Multicultural Center, is offering. Go see what the Rec Cent's offering. Go to health and wellness and do a mindfulness session. Do all different things, because it really will make a difference, and it will make you appreciate being a UC Santa Barbara student even more. Get involved with the research. Maybe not your freshman year, but we are mostly an undergraduate campus, and faculty need undergraduates to help them with their research. There's something called IRCA. You're going to learn about a lot of these opportunities, but step through the door, inquire, look into them, check out the websites. Getting involved with research will expand your horizons and learn a ton about a subject, get to know a faculty member and graduate students, and these could be the letters of rec that is going to be the ticket for you to go on to graduate school, even future jobs. Every quarter, Student Life offers something called the Leadership Challenge. Sign up to do the Leadership Challenge. You will learn so much about yourself, you will hone in on your values, and you will be an effective leader. You are going to just expand on how to lead people and what matters to you most. There's the McNair program. This is research-based, and it's for those who are thinking about being a professor one day. Definitely look into the McNair program. Associated students. This is our school government. But beyond being an elected person or getting involved with different issues and elected officers, they have all kinds of different issues in which they pursue, from environment to racial justice, feminism, the Women's Commission. So some really good, solid organizations to get involved with, especially if you want to make a difference on this campus. Student Life, over 500 registered campus organizations, you name it, we've got it. And if we don't, you can start an org. We'll have virtual org fairs. I highly suggest you check those out. Getting a job, there is in the fall, early fall, a career services hosts a career fair for getting a job on campus. Even if you're not ready, maybe you attend and learn about all the different options that are out there. I teach a leadership course for upper division students. So in the future, if you're really interested in leadership, you can get involved with Ed 173. Oh, and we have a brand new class. Well, it's not new, Ed 20. I highly recommend Ed 20. Ed 20 is Introduction to the University for the first year student. And we have offered this before, and it's going to be similar, but we're going to have a social justice bent to it. And we are offering it to 2,500 students. So I really suggest you check that out, especially if you need some more units. It counts as a writing requirement, so you can get that out of the way. And you'll learn a lot about how to get involved with UCSB and really thinking about social justice. Then look for internships. You know, career services can help you with that. Different departments have different internships. So there's a lot of ways to get involved. And of course, I'm not saying tomorrow get involved with everything, but over your 4 years, a variety of these things will really make a difference in terms of how successful you are, especially post-grad and while you're in school too. So some examples of some extraordinary gauchos that I wanted to share with you. My son was just asking me if I wanted some popcorn. And I said, no, not right now. I think it's really nice to have some examples of what gauchos before you have done. One woman, oh my gosh, she graduated about 15, 20 years ago. I don't even know what year she graduated, probably in the 90s. Stephanie, African-American woman, just extraordinary. She was an intern in Office of Admissions is how I got to know her. And she always had eyes on the prize was to become a medical doctor. And I'm happy to report she is. I actually visited her 2-3 summers ago. I was back east, and she was a medical doctor at Dartmouth at their medical center. And she had just been named also an associate dean of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which was really cool. And she's done some extraordinary work. She's actually moved on from Dartmouth. I'm trying to remember where she is now, but she now has really focused on the diversity piece of being a medical doctor, and she writes all kinds of articles, especially about Black children, and because she's a pediatrician. So she was a resident assistant at UCSB, and then her first year out of college, she took a gap year before she went on to medical school. She was an assistant resident director. So she's a cool story. A cool story about her. Another young man, Paul. Paul, first generation, also Latino. He was our Associated Students president. And I got to know Paul when he was a freshman at UCSB because he got involved with our leadership programs. And I just saw him flourish. And by the time he was a senior, he was AS president. He is the founder of our AS food bank, which is incredible because it was one of the first in the country and it was a real model. And from there, campuses, and UCSB is no different, has created a whole plethora of basic needs for students. And that has really been pivotal in us helping students not only just be at college, but to be successful at college, because it's important that we make sure we think about where they live, how they're eating, that they have access to all the resources they need to be a successful student. And Paul was the first to really push the administration and associated students to consider that students don't have access to good food if they don't have that much money. So he's a great success. He's an attorney now. He graduated from Berkeley Law. Brittany is a Black woman that I met when I was at admissions, and I forgot to mention I'm one of the advisors for the Black Student Union. And her time at UCSB, one of her peers started an organization called ABC, African Black Coalition, and they started having these conferences every year. And they'd had two at two different UCs, and she said it's time for UCSB to host one. So she had to raise like $20,000 and put together this whole conference. She practically lived in my office as I supported her fundraising and putting together this conference. She then went on to get her degree at UCLA in social work. She did that for a while. She then received a master's and became a dean at an elementary school. And 4 years ago, she took a leap of faith and moved to Massachusetts and began her doctorate degree at Harvard University. And she started a nonprofit. She's doing amazing things. So that's Brittany. One of our alums started Lyft on this campus, and I remember we were trying to figure out how to support students around taxis and all of that. And the founder of Lyft was a UCSB alum, and it was a great thing to bring to campus to support our students. So those are some examples of some really successful, just a small little few examples of some really successful UCSB students that I had the great fortune of watching grow up and become successful adults. So lastly, I want you to understand how student affairs is so unique. I want you to understand that COVID-19 is a huge obstacle, but I know that we're going to be okay because this is not the first time that we have faced adversity. It's definitely very strange because when I've had to work with students to do really hard stuff, it's felt very like, oh, this is UCSB. And so COVID is the world. So you're not the only ones who are having to figure this out. We are not the only ones who are having to figure this out. And we have you on the front of our minds, and we really want to look to see how we can best support you. When I was just becoming an associate dean of student life, we had a really tough year here at UCSB, 2013-14. And you may have heard of it, you may not have, but I think I should mention it just in case you do, to understand what happened. We had a shooting, we had gun violence, and this guy stabbed his three roommates, and he injured others with his car, and he killed 3 others. And that was a really trying time for UCSB. We also had an outbreak of meningitis, and we had to set up immunization clinics because you have to have 2 shots. I think you all have to do that now before you come to UCSB. So we had a lot going on. We also, over the election with free speech, a lot going on. So this isn't the first time we've had to do hard stuff, is what I'm trying to say. And we have learned a lot. And I think about students every day and how to best support them. But what I don't worry so much about is your resilience, because you all are amazing. You are so smart. You are so capable. You were admitted to UCSB. You have had your own obstacles just to get this far. So even though this is hard, we have done hard stuff before. I've worked closely with students. Whenever there's something hard, the first thing I do is turn to students is ask, what support do you need? What do you want to do? How do you want to show up? What are we going to do differently? How are we going to help each other? And I have no doubt we're going to continue that legacy here at UCSB. Let's see. Some things to think about to help you with your success that have proved to help me and other students. And I know some of this will sound a little cheesy, but I really want you to think about it. So things to get you started is to be intentional. What is interesting to you? One thing that I do every week is I have a 2-minute morning, and I actually do this with my associate deans. And our 2-minute morning is, what are you going to let go of? So think about that. As you're transitioning to be a UCSB student, you're partaking in STEP. What are you going to let go of to help you fully be present as you're participating in STEP? You know, is it, I'm going to try not to be so scared about meeting new people. I'm going to not worry about the fact that I don't get to be on campus, or maybe I'm going to get one of the single rooms and what that's going to be. So what are you going to let go of? What is an obstacle that you can just breathe into and just trust that everything's going to be okay around that? Then think about what you're grateful for. The opportunity to be a UCSB student, the opportunity to participate in STEP, meeting new people, learning about how to be successful at UCSB. Whatever it is, a family that's supportive of you doing this, that you're healthy and alive. What are you grateful for? I like to think of at least 3 things, and that is proven to help you with your well-being, by the way. And then finally, what are you going to focus on? What are your goals? My goal is to participate and be present at all of the STEP sessions. My goal is to do the homework that is required of me. My goal is to meet at least 2 new people. Okay, so those are some examples. So what are you going to let go of? What are you grateful for? And what are you going to focus on? And I do this every Monday. You can pick a different day, but I highly recommend the practice. I think it's really helpful. And look for opportunities to read outside of school. It's really hard, so maybe not a book. But I get to read a lot more now since I'm not in school. I have my doctorate degree. I have a terminal degree. I don't have to go back. But that doesn't keep me from remaining to be a lifelong learner. And so one of the books that I love is by Brené Brown. And her book is called Be Brave, Dare to Lead. And she says, leadership is not about titles, status, and wielding power. A leader is anyone who takes responsibility by recognizing the potential in people and ideas and has the courage to develop that potential. So think about how you could do that for each other as peers, as you're embarking on this new adventure together and as you're meeting each other. Think about how you can support one another. Brené Brown also says, when we dare to lead, we don't pretend to have the right answers. We stay curious and ask the right questions. We don't see power as finite and hoard it. We know that power becomes infinite when we share it with others. We don't avoid difficult conversations and situations. We lean into vulnerability when it's necessary to do good work. So finally, what I want to leave you with, and something that I thought was kind of cool that I read recently. I saw this little article, and it's about the cartoon Peanuts, which might be way too old for you all, but I think you'll recognize who Peanuts is. In fact, what I'm going to do is share my screen. So I wonder if y'all recognize this character. On July 31st, 1968, a young Black man was reading the newspaper when he saw something that he had never seen before. With tears in his eyes, he started running and screaming throughout the house, calling for his mom. He would show his mom, and she would gasp, seeing something she thought she would never see in her lifetime. Throughout the nation, there were similar reactions. What she saw was Franklin Armstrong's first appearance on the iconic comic strip Peanuts. Franklin would be 50 years old this year. Franklin was born after a school teacher, Harriet Glickman, had written a letter to creator Charles M. Schulz after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death outside his Memphis hotel room. Glickman, who had kids of her own and having worked with kids, was especially aware of the power of comics among the young. And my feelings at the time was that I realized that Black kids and white kids never saw themselves together in the classroom, she said. She would write, since the death of Martin Luther King, I've been asking myself what I can do to help change those conditions in our society which led to the assassination and which contribute to the vast sea of misunderstanding, hate, fear, and violence. Glickman asked Schulz if he could consider adding a Black character to his popular comic strip, which she hoped would bring the country together and show people of color that they are not excluded from American society. She had written to others as well, but the others feared it too soon, that they may be costly to their careers, that the syndicate would drop them if they dared to do something like that. Charles Schulz did not have to respond to her letter. He could have had just completely ignored it, and everyone would have forgotten about it. But Schulz did take the time to respond, saying he was intrigued with the idea, but he wasn't sure whether it would be right coming from him. He didn't want to make matters worse. He felt that it may sound condescending to people of color. Glickman did not give up and continued communicating with Schulz surprisingly responding each time. She would even have Black friends write to Schulz and explain to him that it would mean what it would mean to them to give them, and gave him some suggestions on how to introduce each character without offending anyone. Such a character. This conversation would continue until one day, Schulz would tell Glickman to check her newspaper on July 31st, 1968. On that date, the cartoon created by Schulz shows Charlie Brown meeting a new character named Franklin. Other than his color, Franklin was just an ordinary kid who befriends and helps Charlie Brown. Franklin also mentions that his father was over at Vietnam. At the end of the series, which lasted 3 strips, Charlie invites Franklin to spend the night one day so they can continue their friendship. The original comic strip of Charlie Brown meeting Franklin is shown right here. I just thought this was a good reintroduction of Franklin to the rest of the world. I'm very glad to know you. There was no big announcement. There was no big deal. It was just a natural conversation between 2 kids whose obvious differences did not matter to them. And the fact that Franklin's father was fighting for his country was also a very strong statement by Schulz. Although Schulz never made a big deal over the inclusion of Franklin, there were many fans, especially in the South, who were very upset by it and made national news. One Southern editor said, "I don't mind if you have a Black character, but please don't show them together in school." Schulz responds, "I remember telling Larry at the time about Franklin. He wanted to make me change it, and we talked about it for a long while on the phone, and I finally sighed and said, well, Larry, let's put it this way. Either you print it just the way I draw it, or I quit. How's that?" Eventually, Franklin became a regular character in the comic strips, and despite complaints, Franklin would be shown sitting in front of Peppermint Patty at school and playing center field on her baseball team. More recently, Franklin is brought up on a social media around Thanksgiving time when he animated 1973 special A Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving Appears. Some people have blamed Schultz for showing Franklin sitting alone at the Thanksgiving table while the other characters sit across from him. But Schultz did not have the same control over the animated cartoon on a television network that he did on his comic strip for the newspaper. So I share that story with you because we have a long way to go where we all could just be comfortable together. We're always going to be different: skin color, culture, experiences. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. And I know that you all can make a difference in the world, even if it's a character, it's a gesture, it's protest, it's demanding more. And this 1968 was a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. And we still have a lot we can learn and a lot we can do. So on that note, that's where I'm going to leave you to continue your journey with STEP and start a really important journey as a UCSB student. And I can't wait to meet you in person. I'm really hoping this is done soon. Meanwhile, I'll see you online. I'll see you virtually. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, comments, want to know how to get involved, just want to chat. I'd love that. I'm pretty easy to find, Katya Armistead. I have a website. My email is just my first name, Katya, the @ ucsb.edu. Good luck, and I'll see you soon.